Well, I think probably in the movie it will be funny and it will be sad. I read the first script, and it started out great, and it got greater, you know.
They called her the coal miner's daughter. But long before Loretta Lynn became a legend, before the Grammys, the standing ovations, the rhinestone-studded gowns, she was just a teenage lady with 4 infants on her hip and a voice no man could resist. Country music glorified her narrative in the same way that folklore does. An impoverished Kentucky girl rises to prominence, sings her truth, and takes home the crown. What they never saw or heard was what happened after the curtain came down. What hid beyond the Grand Ole Opry's stage doors. What she jotted down late at night when no one was watching. Loretta didn't just live country music, she survived it. She once quipped, "They can have the stage, but they can't have my voice." And now, after years of silence, her voice is as loud as ever. It takes the form of burning garments, sealed letters, and a room that never actually existed. Room 9C is a door with no nameplate, no listing, and no witnesses, except one. Loretta ceased going to memorial services in her latter years. She skipped interviews. She grinned, but not with the same intensity. And behind the scenes, she started saying no. To appearances, to edit, to those who previously applauded her but never stood by her. Years after her last appearance, something has reappeared. A letter, a journal. She buried the truth in the walls of Hurricane Mills for decades, waiting for someone to discover it. It was not intended to be read. However, once you've read it, you won't be able to stop hearing the tune. Loretta Lynn did not grow up on stages. She was raised with dirt under her fingernails and coal smoke in her lungs. Born in a cottage with no running water, electricity, or paved roads. Butcher Holler, Kentucky is so remote from Nashville that most maps do not bother to name it. She married Oliver "Dew" Lynn at the age of 15. Loretta was boiling nappies and singing lullabies while most other girls her age were picking out prom outfits. Her first guitar was a $17 pawn shop rescue. She taught herself how to play it between dishes and feedings at daybreak. She wrote tunes on notebook scraps, raw, messy, unapologetic. When Honky Tonk Girl first appeared on the radio, it wasn't magical. It was miles. She and Dew went across back roads, sleeping in the car and handing out albums to DJs at greasy eateries and small-town stations. Loretta did not have an agency. She had grit. The Grand Ole Opry gave her the spotlight, but she didn't feel warmth, but rather heat. They informed her that she should not sing. No songs about birth control, Loretta. Nothing too personal, too angry, too feminist. She did it anyway. The Pill was more than simply a song. It was a smack in the face to men who believed women should remain silent. Stations prohibited it. Pastors condemned it. Nonetheless, it skyrocketed in popularity because women recognized their own voices within it. Loretta wore homemade dresses on stage. She did not flatter the producers. She did not apologize for speaking the truth. That rendered her a menace. Behind the Opry curtains, she was not the queen. She was the disruptor. Even while the audience applauded, others backstage preferred her silence. However, Loretta was not a quiet person. And as she sang louder, someone began to plan how to turn down her microphone. It was the summer of 1974, and Loretta Lynn had already established herself as a household name, not just in Nashville, but throughout the country. She was selling out venues, winning awards, creating headlines. Her songs, however, get more powerful with each subsequent smash. Someone behind the scenes did not like the sound of that. She was backstage at the Grand Ole Opry on a stormy Thursday night, running through a rehearsal set, when the stage lights flickered. The soundboard cracked, rain pummeling the roof as if it were trying to get in. That's when a stagehand she didn't recognize handed her a folded scrap of paper. No words, just a time. The room number is 9C. Loretta had been performing at the Opry for several years. She recognized every hallway, green room, dressing room, and coffee stand. But she had never heard of room 9C. She asked where it was. The stagehand did not respond. After sound check, curiosity trumped prudence. She proceeded past the familiar backstage doors, beyond the dressing rooms, and down a hallway smelling of wet carpet and charred wires. She took a turn that most performers never saw. No windows. There are no voices. A door with no nameplate or handle from the outside, simply a brass keyhole and a faint humming sound from behind it. When she knocked, it opened immediately. Inside, there's one naked lamp, one wooden chair, and a man dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. She recognized his face, not from television or record deals, but from murmurs. One of the Opry's quiet bosses, the kind who wasn't in the photos yet, made every decision. He did not say hi. He did not ask her to sit. He took out a folded sheet of paper. It was a copy of her most recent song, The Other Side of Me, which had yet to be released or performed. She only showed the lyrics to her pianist and manager. He read one phrase aloud. She chose to walk, not weep. Then he looked up. I smiled slightly and asked, "Do you want to sing this? Then you need to know which side of you we own." Loretta did not respond. She could not. The rest of that experience was never mentioned aloud, not to her management, her family, or even in interviews decades later. However, when she appeared, her face was pallid. Her hands trembled. She did not return to the changing room. She walked directly out to the parking lot, removed the dress she had planned to wear, a light pink floor-length gown with white accent, and lit it on fire near the loading bay with a book of matches from her purse. A caretaker noticed the flames and attempted to extinguish them. She said nothing, just watched it burn, like if it had betrayed her. Later that night, she skipped the new song and instead sang something safe, something soft. At home, she used a red ink pen to write 6 words in her personal notebook. They touched my voice tonight. Again. Aside from that, 9C, circled twice, then crossed out. Something changed in Loretta after she left room 9C. Not on stage. On stage, she continued to smile and hit every note like it was engraved in fire. Off stage, she became quieter, more vigilant. She began asking more questions in private than in public. Because once you've seen behind the curtain, it's difficult to clap along with the performance. However, she was not the only one who kept quiet. In the shadows of the Opry, a sisterhood of sequin-clad ladies emerged, steeped in agony. Not a nightclub, not a rebellion. Only a line of unsaid eyes went between changing rooms. They each had their own version of room 9C, even though the number was different, even if they never spoke it aloud. Dottie West was the first to say something memorable. After a joint engagement in Knoxville, she sat with Loretta in a smoky hotel bar and stated, "They want us pretty, not present. If they touch your songs, they will eventually touch your skin." Dottie's smile never faltered, but her eyes revealed a different story. Loretta asked what she meant. Dottie drank her drink and said quietly, "You'll know when you know." Loretta wasn't surprised when Dottie's name started to disappear from posters. Naomi Judd was unique, brighter, bolder, fiercer. But even Naomi had sad moments. In the final year before her death, she began sending Loretta strange messages, sometimes just bits of songs, other times typed notes with no return address. A folded note within a Bible page said, "If I go quiet, it wasn't my choice." Loretta kept that one in her nightstand, read it as a prayer. Then there was Skeeter Davis, who was barred from the Opry in 1973 after criticizing the church's relationship with the industry. Loretta remembered the note Skeeter had sent her following the fallout. One sentence, scrawled in blue ink. "They're not upset with what I said. They are upset that I mentioned it in public." That was when Loretta stopped writing songs in her personal journal. She began keeping records, typed, dated, and signed. She kept track of any setlist changes made at the last minute. Every time her microphone failed without explanation. Every encounter felt like a show rather than a conversation. She documented which men never looked at her after 9C. Conway is the one who has always done this. Conway Twitty was the only male authorized to approach her in public. Their chemistry was evident. Their duets are famous. Fans thought they were lovers. Loretta has always denied it. In a letter concealed in Hurricane Mill's attic, she stated that he saw what happened. He looked me in the eye, then walked away. She didn't detest him for it, but she never forgets, because in that society, survival didn't imply protection. It required learning to defend yourself. Loretta Lynn never wore a crown that she hadn't previously bled for. It was October 2021, and Hurricane Mills was calm. The ranch no longer resonated with the commotion of tour buses and journalists. Loretta spent much of her time inside, sitting by the window and watching the trees change with the seasons. She had ceased giving interviews. I stopped traveling. But her quiet did not mean she had ceased telling the truth. Loretta Lynn never considered the truth to be a headline. It was a drawer in her guest cabin. A locked drawer was nestled into an ancient writing desk upstairs, one she hadn't used in years. Until a 26-year-old music researcher named Avery drove 6 hours from Memphis with nothing but a voice recorder and a desire to highlight the underrepresented women in country music. She didn't expect to meet Loretta. She only wanted a photo, a quotation, a reminder of what it was like to sing when the rest of the world refused to listen. Instead, she discovered the drawer. Loretta had slipped away for tea. Avery politely wandered the cabin and noticed the desk. One of the drawers sat crooked, pulled just slightly ajar. Inside, there is a leather-bound notepad that has become rigid with age, with discolored corners. The first page included a note written in precise handwriting that stated, "If you're reading this, you were meant to." The pages were not filled with music lyrics. They were packed with memories that they attempted to erase. Titles include Silent Sets 1979, Room 9C, Second Visit, names they told me not to say. There were pages on Conway, about the producers, regarding drapes that refused to rise on cue. In 1981, one entry stated, "I stood there in the dark with a dead microphone and 1,400 fans staring. They wanted to see if I would break. I did not. But I bent." A yellowed photograph was tucked away in the back. It revealed a backstage passageway, which was fuzzy but recognizable. A bronze doorknob with a nameplate above it sits in the corner, nearly concealed by a wire rack. 9C. When Loretta returned, she discovered Avery holding the journal. She did not panic. She sat next to her, opened the last page, and stated, "They thought I was too country to remember, too nice to write it down. But I did." The next morning, she called her lawyer and a music library in Louisville. Within 2 weeks, she sent the notebook, along with 2 sealed boxes to be held in trust. The agreement stated, "If they ever try to rewrite me, this writes back." She didn't mention it again. However, those close to her noticed something. She smiled a little more during her final months. Not the smile of a lady who has forgiven. The smile of a woman who had finished the song, even if no one was ready to hear it yet. Loretta Lynn never delivered a farewell performance. There was no goodbye special, no final Opry celebration, and no standing ovation. She didn't need it. She realized a forced tribute was just another ploy to smooth over a story that had never been smooth. Instead, she took a step back, quietly, deliberately. When the news of her death surfaced in October 2022, tributes poured in quickly, photos with gold frames. Her most popular songs are heard on every country radio station. Male co-stars share sweet anecdotes. However, something was missing. Something that couldn't be conveyed in a montage or inserted between commercial breaks. Loretta had not said goodbye, because the industry had never truly greeted the real woman. She didn't want to be recognized solely as a country star. She wanted to be known as a lady who told the truth, even if it wasn't popular. And now, owing to what she left behind, the truth is finally emerging. Copies of her journal began to circulate among young female Opry performers. Scanned pages, dog-eared notes. Whispers circulated in the changing rooms regarding Room 9C. Some artists questioned why the Hall of Fame does not include her entire tale. Others began to use her name on stage, not as a legend, but as a warning, a reminder. Loretta wrote a line in red ink above a mirror in a new artist's green room. They can take the stage, but they will never own the song. And there, buried in the ground of the Grand Ole Opry, a place based on twang, tradition, and tight-lipped obedience, there is still the form of a door. It is no longer marked, no longer mentioned. However, they were never entirely eradicated, because Loretta Lynn did not require a final bow. She left something more permanent. She left an echo, and echoes do not seek permission to be heard.